I've been giving brief updates the past 6 months of the status, and make sure we're live here. There we go. Technology works. This is a good opportunity. We've met our timeline. This is about a 6 to 7 month process. Just to give folks a little bit of background.
Hold on just a second. Summer, did you want to pan the camera so our viewing audience would be able to see that, unless you're displaying that on the video? Because I know this is going to have some community interest. Thank you, man. Jason, thank you for your understanding.
Thanks, Norm. Oddly enough, I think today's November the 29th, correct?
It is indeed.
So November the 29th, a year ago today, we hosted a voluntary meeting in this room with the commissioners, the sheriff, myself, and other key personnel, just to give a general background on the lay of the land and the current facility. Obviously, we had some previous studies completed, so we've been at this well over a year through a public RFQ process that began with initial interviews in late February. We went down to 2 firms, well-respected firms, in March. Had a couple interviews with commissioners, the sheriff's key staff, key county personnel, including buildings and grounds, telecommunications, county engineer Gills, myself, etc. Ultimately, via that competitive process, selected HOK, which was approved April 7th, 2022 via Commissioner's Resolution. Brief project background. I know we've heard a lot over the years about the jail, and the sheriff will join me in a few moments to discuss any outstanding items that I messed up, right? The current bed opened in 1990 at a capacity of 353 inmates. During that time, 100 inmates in the Lake County system were brought over. Today, the current facility, for the most part, is full, and significant rehabilitation is needed. Mark and Paul are not here today, but the 2 gentlemen, in addition to the sheriff's management team, are responsible on keeping the building operational 365, 24/7. It is a full-time job. Average daily population in 18 and 19 was 385. That's a key number pre-COVID because, as I noted in the first bullet point, it's designed at 353 inmates. In 1990, the male versus female inmates has inverted or has changed tremendously. I think the sheriff brought over 10 females in 1990. Today, at any point in time, there could be 80 to 100 females in the facility, which presents significant challenges in the building. In 1990, 2/3 were misdemeanors. Today, 2/3 are felons. Once again, different levels of security and challenges the sheriff, Captain Brooks, etc. are dealing with. Clearly inadequate medical facilities and operational challenges with those that exhibit mental health and or substance abuse in the jail. I think the numbers are approximately 70 to 75% of those folks in the jail are dealing with substance abuse, mental health, etc. Once again, the training, education, clinics are lacking in the current facility. Continuing on project background, since 2014 we've had 3 studies completed, a public safety facility in 14. We looked at the facade in 18, and we once again took another hard look in 2019 regarding the jail. In short, the jail requires millions of dollars in renovations, and the 19 study recommended a replacement of the jail. Literally, as we speak, the vast majority of the mechanicals, elevators, etc., are at the end of their life. Matter of fact, the buildings and grounds superintendent let Mr. Matus and I know 2 weeks ago that we have a significant elevator repair. If this doesn't work, that elevator is done. It would be a complete reconstruction of an elevator in the county jail, which is another challenge, moving inmates, moving food, etc. The roof needs replaced, removed. Every brick would need to come off due to leaking, poor design, construction, etc. There's lack of flexibility for space. As a matter of fact, the sheriff has 1 conference room, about 1/8 of this size for all the activities that goes on in his facility. I've noted these: inadequate space for substance abuse training, mental health counseling, the kitchen and laundry are substandard. And then a lot of the actions and activities that go on that a lot of folks don't talk about because we hear about the jail are the daily activities of the sheriff's administrative side of the office. General office, admin, adult probation is housed over there, SWAT, evidence storage, etc., is by today's standards, is not sufficient to meet the operational needs of Sheriff Liam Bruno and his team. Where are we today? As I said, in April, we entered a contract with HOK. We went through the steps in front of you to get to where we are. We had a kickoff meeting, multiple meetings. Kudos to Captain Brooks and her team. Really, they were the boots on the ground in the trenches, working through what's the existing conditions, what do they need, what's sustainable, and what will take us into the future. You know, that took us through some user group sessions, some key stakeholders, judges, mental health professionals, local hospitals were interviewed, and then we got into the programming. And I think it's important to note that this isn't a set of blueprints or plans, rather some Excel spreadsheets detailed of room by room, square footage, and some bubble mapping of adjacencies, where things need to go. Also looked at a site or two, and then ultimately got to what we're calling, or what the consultants call, a rough order of magnitude on what this investment would cost over the long term, and we will discuss that briefly. So just briefly, the results. The current facility is 353 beds. The sheriff received a waiver in about 2010 when needed to double bunk an additional 60 inmates. Pre-COVID, it would not be unusual for the sheriff to let the board know that there were over 400 inmates in the county jail. The programming results of the past 6 months have revealed, at this point, a need for a facility of 504 beds in the new proposed facility. The square footage of the facility is, once again, at this point in time, 204,000 square feet, which give or take is about the size of a super Walmart, just to give folks a sense of scale on what we're looking at. And the graph in front of us basically is a generic breakdown of some of the building envelope spaces in the jail. There are subsequent pages that detail all the line items in the program. For example, we have probation, jail admin, general population housing, clinical mental health, warehousing, etc. And another important thing that a lot of folks don't talk about, I know Commissioner Regovich from his mayor's days, our Sally Port and the ability to get local police officers in the jail or in the sheriff's office, unload their clients. They can be out of service in a local community for hours just based on the logistics of the current Sally Port. That's going to be a key design feature in a new facility. The proposed site is directly across the street from the current Lake County Sheriff's Office, which is at 104 East Erie. 125 East Erie is the address of the current structure where the Lake County Public Defender is located. For geographical reference, this is adjacent to the existing Lake County Juvenile Court, houses the former OSU extension, and once again, the building where the Public Defender currently resides, along with some subsidiary offices. The structure, this particular building here is our recently constructed Lake County Buildings and Grounds and Telecommunications Facility. This is a schematic representation or feasibility analysis of the program setbacks. How big does it need to be? And then what they did was they mapped that from a blocking perspective. So what you're showing here, once again, is not architectural prints, rather the program on a geographic footprint. So what you see is approximately a three-story, 210,000 square foot building on Erie Street with the rear portion abutting East Jackson Street. We have some positives with this site, including topography. We have about a 12-foot topographic change from East Erie to East Jackson, which will yield some positives. Construction standards. Keeping the jail in the downtown area is a positive for the county court system with movement of inmates and so on. And you can also see in some of the gray areas some future parking that have been identified adjacent and or extremely close to the current facility. And it should be noted that the current facility today would be earmarked for future parking. I think the number will be about 125 parking spots across from the current jail. Some of the important parts on the schematic that you see are secured parking for sheriff's employees. Today, those individuals park in various spots throughout the county portfolio of parking lots. So a more secure county sheriff's office campus is extremely important as we move to the next potential stage, which would be schematic design. Commissioners, if you have any other questions, please stop me if you have anything you'd like me to add. So what the consultants have labeled, what is our rough order of magnitude of cost for a project of this scale? And there's five items that we are facing currently. The impact of the general market. Interest rates have increased, they probably will continue to increase, and Mr. Manis and I have talked extensively about what that does to potential pricing and needed investment, et cetera, on projects throughout the county. Supply chain issues, somebody was talking about supply chain today. We don't know what the raw material will be, but we have a pretty good understanding that we are going to face supply chain issues in a project of this scale should we move forward. Escalation, inflation issues speak for themselves. In 2019, I think Mr. Matus indicated an interest rate at that point in time was about 3.25%. 3.57. Today we're looking at rates north of 5%, probably on a conservative basis, and that's working with some of our guidance from bond counsel. Increased labor, that speaks for itself. We're seeing that in every discipline in county government, from job and family services, utilities, corrections officers, just trying to get folks in a competitive market to find qualified labor. That is going to be a challenge on a project of this scale, is to find, to the best extent possible, local qualified firms to build a quality project. And then the fifth issue impacting the rough order of magnitude is the value of time. What does the cost of time, what is the cost of time as far as do we move forward next year? I mean, HOK presented a number that delays in the construction industry on projects of this scale is $1 million per month. That is the value of time from consultants who have just finished projects throughout the Midwest, $1 million per month. This is a hard screen to, this is an all-in budget, proposed rough order of magnitude based on a 504-bed facility and Sheriff's Administration facility. If we were to build, and there's a low range and a high range built into this proposal, or to this rough order of magnitude, excuse me. One is, if it were to be built in 2022, clearly that's not going to happen, $150 million to $159 million. If the project were constructed in 2024, we have a low range of $161 million to $170 million, almost $171 million. It should be noted that this includes the demolition of the current jail. This includes a design contingency of about $10 million. This also includes a project contingency of over $11 million, which is the right thing to do. Should we move forward, hopefully we do not have to dip into those contingencies. But as I learned from other construction projects in the county, those contingencies are there for unforeseen reasons. And I ask that we have an all-in inclusive budget. So we have building permits, administrative commissioning, testing, pre-construction fees, etc. And so I guess the key takeaway in this potential number, in addition to all the other general operating costs that the county is looking at and sustaining, is the $1 million per month potential escalation in projects of this scale. Commissioners, any questions so far?
No, sir. Thank you.
Next steps is looking at a finance strategy, continuing strategic real estate acquisition. As the board knows, a few months ago we acquired what I call the Chicago Title Building. We also acquired earlier this summer the Cannon Stern Aveni Building, both adjacent parcels. So we will continue to look at those possibilities where feasible. Checkmark number 3 would be to enter into what is the next stage, which would be schematic design and design development, which is the detailed construction plans. Subsequent to checkmark 3 would be begin the design build RFQ process. And essentially what that means is begin the procurement of the contract team. the builders who would help, or who would construct the facility should we move forward. The ideal situation would be begin schematic design and design development somewhat in parallel to beginning the procurement process with getting the contractor on board, so that as the design is proceeding, we can bounce those ideas, strategies, construction methodologies, etc., off of the design build team to make sure that we're on a parallel path. I want to thank, and the sheriff, if you would like to come up and add any extra comments, I want to thank, number one, the commissioners for providing the avenue to get to this point. HOK did a really nice job on getting the information we needed in a timely manner. I really stepped to the side, and the sheriff's team spent hours upon hours working with HOK in every nook and cranny of the current facility to get us the program and where we sit today. So, Sheriff, I'll defer to you for future comments.
I've been involved in this process for 34 years that I've been at the sheriff's office, so I was in the building when it first opened. I don't think the question today is, do we need a new jail? The decision's been made. Based on 3 to 4 studies now that have been done on the building, this process really started, if we go back to 2010, when we identified a lot of problems in the construction, and studies that have been done to show the county's done its due diligence. We've had independent studies that have said it needs to be replaced. We have had numerous people look at other options, and there's a lot that goes into that. You know, should we do in addition to the jail? We looked at that. Just in addition to the jail, just to give you some idea, to add 15 more employees for a new addition is another $45 million over 30 years. Designing a jail that needs to meet the needs of Lake County today. Lake County's changed. When I first started in corrections, we were arresting people driving under suspension. Doesn't happen today. The types of offenders who are coming to jail are more serious today. Where we used to have the majority of our population was low-level offenders, today it's felons. 46% of the serious felony cases in Lake County come from people who live outside Lake County. What does that mean? That means that people are looking, criminals are looking at Lake County as a prime target. And right now they realize that if they do crime in Lake County, the likelihood is they're going to jail, they're going to prison. And they're still coming here to commit crime. If we don't have the ability to house these individuals, if our prosecutor's office isn't working, if our courts aren't working, and those begin to break down, you will see crime rise in Lake County. We've seen it in other counties. When their jails have been shut down due to overcrowding, their crime rates have risen. People on probation would call and say, well, how many people are in jail today? Well, this many. Oh, then they're not coming looking for me, so I'm not only showing, I'm going to violate my probation, but I'm going to continue to commit crime. This jail facility affects the safety and security of Lake County. Further, not everybody in our jail goes to prison. In fact, the majority of our population returns to the community. We're dealing with mentally ill individuals, we're dealing with substance abuse problems, we're dealing with domestic violence. If we don't have the ability, the spacing needed to address those needs, we're returning people back to the community, back to their families, worse than when they first came to us. We have to return people back to our society, back to our communities, better than when they first arrived. We need to have the ability to do that. We need, our whole complexity of how the jail operates has changed. We need to respond to the needs of our community And I believe the county has done everything necessary to make sure this is the proper move, and I think it is the proper move to make today.
Well said, sir. While we have you at the mic, you made the comment, the decision has been made. The context of that is, it's a reality. We've done our due diligence. It's not that decisions and discussions have been taking place outside of meetings such as this. We've reached a point where no reasonable person would say it's good enough. We've had to endure countless meetings where our passing state standards of performance were being equated with the suitability of the facility. So I think if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're referencing is, and I just want to be abundantly clear to anyone looking at this in the future, we're talking about what a reasonable person would conclude given the facts set. Am I pretty close to the...
Absolutely. We've done everything reasonable, looked at every option. I believe this is the only option facing Lake County today. So to say we have no other options, I don't believe we do. And we've spent, certainly since the last study, or the first study in 2013, we can't spend any more time on this because, as Mr. Boyd pointed out, the cost of delaying is $1 million a month. And so at some point, we have to move forward on this.
Agreed. This is just one of many demands on the general fund that we're going to take a serious look at. Very good. Gentlemen, anything else?
Yeah, the sheriff said no other options, actually no other viable options at this point.
Sir?
I just want to thank the work that you put in at this time. I know it's a process we need to go through with RFQs and all that kind of stuff, and the law dictates that, and my experience has been the same way, and we see it at the local level too, where we have they changed the how a jail has to be designed, and a lot of our police stations now, our jail facilities aren't adequate enough, and we have to look at that at a local level too. So I understand the need for this facility.
Did a lot of due diligence the last 6 months. I'm glad we finally got to this point, Jason.
Yeah,
Time to go forward.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to give an update on the program. I know I briefly noted during my reports, but getting this information the past couple of weeks, I felt it was a good opportunity to present to the commissioners this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions down the road.
All good. No, this has been several years, and as you point out, this last bit has been a year-long.